First of all, thank you for being here today, especially those new people. This is one of the most dynamic clubs for the Democrats in the entire state, especially in District 1. I know that because I go to all of them. And so thank you very much for what you do as far as Democrats of the Red Rocks. A couple of issues I'll get out of the way really fast. On guns, there's a vote coming up on a silencer. You don't have to email me. I'm against the bill. On DACA, we will continue to be discussing DACA. You see that what the Democratic leadership is concerned about. They will continue to try to make a deal on this issue. They will continue to try to make an issue on this deal. And we're hopeful, I'm very hopeful that we will find a resolution that allows these citizens, well, hopefully future citizens, to be kept in this country. I can't imagine having 800 and some odd thousand people that have lived with us that many years, and they were brought here by their parents to leave our country. And they are really a part of our country and contribute tremendously to the great nation that we are. I will also indicate to you that healthcare is an issue. And so I want to quickly, we have 5 or 6 major issues coming up. And I think, even as I went around the room here, I had a lot of people coming up to me and talking about this issue or that issue. We have to concentrate. If we are going to address healthcare, taxes, the budget, these are all issues, infrastructure bill, these are all issues that every one of us, and you're going to have to call your friends and everybody else, we have to be aware that these are the critical issues we are fighting for right now. And it's going to take a lot of phone calls. No, don't do that. You can call me, but a lot of emails. Emails are the quickest. Letters take 2 weeks. They won't get there fast enough. Phone calls, some offices answer them, some of them don't. My office will answer phone calls and try to get a message to me, but the main thing is emails. And they can't keep count of how many times you get a hold of them. So just keep pounding. And morning, noon, night, every day, especially right now. We have to make sure that we have 3 votes. I think Susan Collins, who I spent 2 hours with the other day, is going to be definitely a no vote. Rand Paul hates this bill, not because of the same reason we hate it, but he hates the bill so much that he's going to vote against it. And so we in this state have to continue to work on John McCain. Yes. That is our goal and the direction we have to go in. And the only way to do that is overwhelm him in his office and make sure they understand it. So I want to give you a couple highlights of the bill. All this talk about pre-existing conditions, every state legislature and governor are going to have the ability to overturn that. Every one of them. So all they have to do is go and get a waiver from the Trump administration. How difficult can that be? Then the other thing is pre-existing conditions. There's no limit on the cost. They can go get a waiver on that too. So they can do away with them. They can get a waiver. We have issues such as addressing the overriding issues of the other 10 essential elements that are in Affordable Care Act, the 26-year-olds on parents' insurance plans, and a number of other areas. These are all issues that can have waivers and be overturned. And the cost to Arizona has been estimated as high as $11 billion between now and 2026. And if we have to take over, Arizona's budget, we don't have the money to take over these programs. And it's our money that goes to Washington too. So the healthcare money that's coming back to us, we want to recapture. And one of the things while you put into the president and leadership and Mr. McCain is that the CHIPS program, we call it Kids Care in Arizona, is up for vote, hopefully by September 30th, otherwise it goes away. So that's an extremely important vote by September 30th. Push them out. And then same with community health centers. We have community health centers that are part of the core of our healthcare system. And about 70% of their money comes from different government programs to care for those that can't care for themselves or have the affordability of insurance. And can't get into a private doctor. And some of them are veterans. And that's the other thing about the healthcare bill. This will hurt our veterans and the elderly. I'm one of them. I have a supplemental bill. I'm pretty lucky on that. But a lot of our senior citizens depend on Medicaid in order to have the supplemental for Medicare. And they're playing around with 1/6 of our economy. They're playing, and this is a political thing. They made a promise that they were going to repeal and replace. Now, I don't have a problem with them fixing the Affordable Care Act. I haven't run into too many Americans that don't really understand that the Affordable Care Act needs to be fixed. There's a whole difference between fixing it and turning it into something that it is not. And that is what we're trying to stop from happening. And when you make a promise, when you're a politician, especially when you're running for the highest office in the land, know what you're talking about. You know, it would really help that you wouldn't say things like, "Oh, I didn't know it would be this hard." You know, who would have thought? You know, this is a very serious issue. This is probably one of the most serious issues for the health and welfare of our citizens that we're facing. So don't only just get a hold of Mr. McCain and the people I've talked about already. Get a hold of your friends, your neighbors, your sons, their friends. Ask them to do the same thing. We know that we can get a lot of people out, but what's occurred is that in January, people were marching and they were fighting and all this other stuff, and by mid-February, you could feel it go away, and then all of a sudden, healthcare went into private rooms and intentionally. And because we should be in regular order, we should be going through committees, we should be working with the regular process so the public can be heard, and all these different agencies and groups. Even the insurers yesterday came out against this bill. I have to find out what is in it that they don't like so we don't put it in the other bill. But the bottom line here is this. When we work together, we will win. When we don't, we will continue to go down the path that we're in right now. If we don't take back the House in 2018, there will be no checks and balances for another 2 years. So what you've seen up to date is what you will continue to see moving forward. So please keep that in mind. When we get through this period of the healthcare issue, keep working, because taxes and budget are going to be critical. They're going to be hard. We did raise the defense budget. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I voted to do that, and so did every other Democrat except for one on the committee. And there was a reason for that. We've gone through 17 years of war. We have to raise the salaries of our soldiers. We have to redo the equipment that they've had. We have to have more recruitment because we are in serious times across the world. And we do not want war. And one of the ways we can stay out of war is to have a strong military and a strong voice, so our State Department can go to the negotiation table with strength. And that's what we want to do. We do not want war. Talking about the State Department really quickly, we don't want to see the draconian cuts of 1/3 of the budget in the State Department. And what we do with other nations, if we draw that money out, some other nation will step in. China's been doing that all over the world. When we step out, they step in. They got into some of these islands and some other areas with natural disasters before we did. They are in Africa all throughout the African continent. So we have to find a way to overcome this. I'm not going to get into Russia because I do want to spend some time talking to you about the issues that are important to you. So let's open up the floor. All the way in back, White.
Me? Yes.
No, oh, the one, you were standing up, and then I'll get you. 1, 2. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm going to go in the middle of the room now. Single payer.
Yes.
I did not sign on to the bill. It doesn't mean that I am against everyone having health insurance. I am for it. But I'm not going to go on a bill that has no analysis on cost, no analysis on what it means to our senior citizens, no idea of how many people we're going to have to insure. I could go on and on, but one of the major reasons we have to be concerned right now is we can't fight 2 fights on healthcare at one time. You have to do one at a time. And if we don't address the affordable healthcare issue now, then we will make sure that tens of millions of people will not have health insurance. And that there are many other people out there that are suffering today that we still have to insure. So that's the main goal. You know, I think I applaud Mr. Sanders for continuing to want to go down this path. But I believe right now the path, and that's why leadership did not sign on to the bill. Because we need to go down a path of fighting this issue that's before us now. You don't, we would only like to deal with this issue and then address the core analysis that has to be done to have a bill that's good for all American citizens into the future where it's affordable for everybody. And that's where I stand. Yes, Paul.
Just a follow-up, and if you had a report from the CBO, would you consider supporting the bill if it was fiscally appropriate?
Well, if it's fiscally appropriate, if it doesn't hurt our senior citizens in the Medicare program we have now, but as I said, I am for making sure every American citizen has insurance for health care. That's my core area. I can't speak to a bill that really, Mr. Sanders, when he's asked, how much is it going to cost, he can't answer that question. So I have to be able to answer these questions when I come out to you and talk to you about these issues. Yes?
It seems to me, and I think a lot of other people, that the major problem facing Democratic candidates is voter suppression, which I think is, as far as I can tell, the leadership in Washington says nothing about. And I'm mystified by this. Why do you people talk about this with yourselves, with each other?
We talk about it all the time. We have a whole program working on it through the Democratic National Party and the Democratic Congressional Campaign and the Senate. And it's a coordinated program. And it's a program to look at legislative alternatives to this and legal alternatives to it. We've already done a couple of lawsuits throughout the nation. So we are looking at each and every one of these. We're also looking at gerrymandering. So there's an entire program on that. But again, we are either going to be overwhelmed by the amount of issues that they're throwing at us, or we're going to concentrate on those issues that we have to address. We will address each of these, but our time out there in the public to address issues with the press and through emails and whatever. I mean, I have a number of emails going on today on healthcare, and it will be tomorrow, and it will be Saturday. I mean, this is the issue for me right now. And so if we start to allow them to deflect us in every other area out there, we will not be able to concentrate enough of our energy on the 5 issues or 6 issues that we must address. But we are doing those things.
Because I mean, the midterm in 2018 is really a big deal.
We know about that.
I know you know. So, but if hundreds of thousands of Democrats are not allowed to vote, it's not good.
No, and that's why we're working so hard at it. We really are.
Okay.
We'll go here and then back up there.
Thank you, Congressman. I really appreciated your point on regular order. There are so many things that are broken in our system. That's one, though, that affects everything that goes through the Congress. Unless I missed something, there is no Democrat tax reform bill, except from the last Congress. Ben Cardin's bill in the Senate is the best thing I have ever seen. It has not been reintroduced. DNC has not endorsed anything. So the whole ground has been shifted over to whatever the Republicans want to throw at us. And your answer then has to be no, no, no. What are we for? How can we tell the people out here that there's a tax reform that could actually help you live better?
Well, we have put a number of amendments on, tried to put amendments on almost every bill to get incorporated into it, the direction we want to go in. Healthcare, I had an amendment for, on prescription drugs. Got to the Rules Committee, dead. You know, this is what's continued, and the Rules Committee was the only committee that heard the bill. No other committees heard the bill at all. That would be regular order, where it went through the committee system and it went through. That's not being done on a majority of what's going on out there. I sit on 2 committees. The Agriculture Committee in the second month had 2 bills before it. We haven't seen another bill since. Armed Services, the only bill we've seen is 1 bill on the budget. So we have to get back there, and I agree with you, by the way. I agree that you can't just sit back and say no. You have to have ideas, and we have to have ideas, and we have to bring those ideas to the forefront. We have on healthcare. We have to now do it as we get into budget, and we have to have alternatives so that the American people that are out there clearly know that we care about their taxes, that we care about their jobs, that we care about making sure their family's quality of life moves forward. And if our message isn't out there like that, and theirs is, we have a problem. Right there.
Yes, in regards to the so-called healthcare, I have to think that maybe if the terminology would be changed from healthcare to sick care, because I believe healthcare is my responsibility, but sick care, if people get sick, you know, they should have a way to get the help they need. And also, maybe it needs to be included to where people can go to an acupuncturist, an herbalist, a homeopathic physician. And that by itself would also create more competition in regards to the medicine that conventional medical profession prescribes. And maybe it slowly would be helpful for integration in that. And that would bring down the cost in a natural capitalistic way.
So let me do your sick care first, instead of health care. A good, healthy system will clearly identify that one of the most cost-effective things to do is to have preventative care, so people don't become sick. And that's why it's so important that in the Affordable Care Act, we do that. And we have seen a tremendous reduction in overall cost to the medical. But by 2018, 2019, we'll have seen $2 trillion of savings just from issues like that. Now, is it our responsibility to care for ourselves? Yes, it's our responsibility. That means that I don't smoke, but I eat too much. But that's my responsibility. That's why I pay for health care. But there are many people in this society that don't even have enough food to eat at the table. Their nourishment is not there for children, for adults, for people in poverty. I have the White Mountain Apache have an 80% unemployment rate. The Navajo have a 60% almost. I can go on and on. Our families have not seen a real pay raise in decades. And so all this has a cumulative effect on our society in general and on clearly addressing the needs of our families. And we can only be as strong as healthy, we can only be as strong as our economy and the health of our people. And I want to follow up and to your other issue. I believe in all those. And so I would love to be able to have a debate on that. But we're not going to have that debate until we address affordable health care. We cannot go down the path of adding on. I understand it's cheaper to do this than this. I think it's cheaper to thin our forest out than to have wildfires. But we're not in that type of a government yet. And so we have to get there to be able to understand it. And if we start to add programs at this point in time instead of save programs, I see your frustration. Instead of saving these programs, we will not get where we need to be to make sure tens of millions of people are still insured. We need to get to a healthier America through any means we can, and to make sure the costs come down. And I believe you're right. Those type of costs would come down, but not today. I'm sorry to deliver bad news.
Is it because of, the stock market and insurance companies and all of these things underneath it all? Or is it simply because of the lack of will in general? And as far as food and nutrition and healthcare, as far as individuals and people who don't have enough to eat, part of it then goes back to education again.
Exactly, and we're losing education dollars. And I'm on the agriculture committee. The SNAP program is they want to cut that back significantly. That's the food for those that are in poverty out there. And they want to cut back on school lunch programs. These are the issues that we're trying to struggle with right now. And there are tremendous amounts of great ideas like yours out there. But we can only do so much at one time when we're not in the majority, and we can only win one battle at a time the way this process is being put together. We aren't even allowed to get things into committees. And so that's a fight that we're having. John McCain said regular order is the only way to go. And now he's thinking about voting for a bill that didn't come out of regular order. So, that's the important element. I want to go this side first.
I'll pass it, whoever you,
Carol, where are you? Who is up here? Right. We'll do 1 then 2. You choose them. Whoever gets the microphone. I don't think it's on.
go ahead. Hello? How about that?
Here you go.
Okay, I hope that we talk more about prevention instead of taking care of this thing. If we,
That's exactly why that's in the Affordable Care Act. That won't be in this new bill. Prevention's a thing of the past with the new bill. So we have to find a way to make sure, and that's what I'm saying. It has saved us trillions of dollars through prevention. We have to recognize that and recognize the other preventative issues that we have to bring forward over time. But right now, just saving that one issue will save our country tremendous amounts of money and save the lives of people that otherwise would go to a hospital and be told, we can't save you now, it's too late.
Thank you. This is a change of topic, but every week at least there's an article in Politico or the New York Times about Democrats are rising, but they don't have their message together. Do you think we have our message together? Do you have your message together?
Well, I know what my message is. I'm not too sure what 193 others have, because we all have different districts. But on the national scale, I agree with you fully. You can tell by the discussion we just had, and the discussion of others I've had around the room today, that our messaging is bifurcated. It has and we've been trying. My second week in office, I went to leadership and said, I don't understand what the message of the Democratic Party is. And I went to other representatives, and they said, they don't understand what it is. Because we just lost the election. And we said, you have to start working. It took us a month and a half before they started actually working on a new messaging thing. And then when they came out with it, they didn't put any money behind it, even social media money, to go out to the American public and our base to make sure that you knew what we were doing and why we were doing it. And we're still having a problem with that. And so we will start to send you as much information as we can about this messaging process. We don't want to send too many emails out because people start to disregard them, and we're trying to send them out like our whole next week. You'll see nothing almost but healthcare, because we want you to have the facts on that and know exactly what it's about and how to address it. But after that, we have other things that we'll try to get to. But the messaging thing, I will bring that message back to leadership, thank you, because I continue to do that all the time. Sure.
What is the problem with leadership? That we're not getting it?
I think we're all right now, the amount of stuff coming at us is unbelievable. I mean, it's not because they're not working hard enough. It's not because we've been a unified caucus on a multitude of issues. That's because leadership held us together. We have a leadership that went from, that has coalesced the caucus, so that we're not internally having distractions of fighting with one another over moderate, progressive, in between, whatever. We're trying to address these issues as what is in the best interest of the American public. Leadership is trying to work on that. We just came off an election cycle where it was obvious that our messaging wasn't very good, but also that our organizational skills weren't very good. So we have the National Party is going through a complete organizational transition. The Congressional Campaign Committee is going through a transition of how to blend in social media more with advertising. It's like, I don't want to say it's like trying to turn around an aircraft carrier, but it is more like a cruiser.
Are they gonna do it before the next election?
I think yeah, I think so. Yeah, we are putting a tremendous amount of resources in that process. Yes, we have meetings every week.
How do you feel about the Schumer, Pelosi, and Trump deal? I mean, did you have input in it? How do Democrats feel about that?
First of all, it's not a deal.
All right, what word would you use?
I would use it's a proposal.
Okay.
There were certain leaders in that room and in Congress that do not agree with it.
Okay.
And it did result in a continuing resolution going out. I am not in favor of continuing resolutions. It costs a tremendous amount of money to our government. And we're there to set a budget so that we know what we're going to spend and not spend. But again, it opened a door and a window to be able to have further discussions. And that's the key to what occurred in that room. That we starting a dialogue. And that's what the key to, I'm on a group called the Problem Solvers. It's a bipartisan group because we want to start the discussion. And we're working with moderate Republicans and Democrats from across the entire caucus to be able to address issues. And that's why we put out a healthcare proposal that is the basis for what the Senate is working on right now in committee. That's the proposal that the 41 of us put out. Thank you. That's Pat O'Halloran, my wife. I also have with me today a guy some of you might know, Chip Davis, who's on my staff. And Ryan Mulcahy. Where are you at, Ryan? We have a long day ahead of us. So next question. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about the Affordable Care Act. I had to be on that for a little over a year. And I qualified because I had lost my job, became disabled, so I was paying monthly. Come tax time, when I filed my taxes, my accountant said, you know, you have the Affordable Care Act and you were supplemented with that insurance. And do you realize that if you get a tax refund, the government will take it? Is that going to be on this next, whether you repeal it, revise it, whatever you do to get people covered, is that going to be part of this? Because a lot of people that are on the Affordable Care Act, they may get $200 or $300 back on income tax refund and it's gone.
First of all, I've never had that question.
Oh, well, I'm glad I asked
I'm
it.
going to ask you.
I'm glad I asked it.
Before you leave today to talk to Ryan, we'll get your name and address.
Well, I'm not on it anymore, I'm on
No,
Medicare.
But
Thank God.
I want you to have the answer though, and everybody else. So we will, and you probably know the
I
answer.
do know the answer. Can I use the microphone because of my voice?
Yes, you definitely.
First of all, you aren't on the Affordable Care Act. It's just an insurance exchange for everybody. You can be a multi-millionaire and be a small business owner and still purchase your insurance.
Right, I
exchange.
understand all that.
What happens is when you have a subsidized plan, in other words, your income is low, and they subsidize you, when you enroll, you estimate your income for the following year. If you estimate wrong and your income is actually higher than what you estimated, they come back and charge you for what it would cost with what you actually made versus what you told you would make. Does that make sense?
Well, see, that's not what happened to me. My income was lower, cause I became disabled and couldn't work.
And get
And
another
if I was going to have a refund, my accountant said, they will take it.
I think your accountant was confusing. the
No, my
regular-
accountant wasn't.
I think what it was going on is he was confusing the regular system with the system you were under. There are different laws on that. And I do know that this guy knows what he's talking about, because Jeff is in the business. And he's probably one of the people that has fought harder for healthcare, Affordable Care Act than most Americans have in the entire country, and was able to ask the question on television. Who would you, Mr. Ryan?
Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan. So, and has met with me a number of times because of his concern about healthcare. Ryan, you told me there's somebody back here.
Thank you for coming.
Can you get it?
Yes.
As a staunch independent, thinking about the messaging for the Democratic Party, I'd like to embrace the Democratic Party, but the discussions I have in my area, people I talk with, I think the bottom line always comes down to people before profits, all the shareholders involved with all of this. And I'm wondering if there is political will with sitting Democrats to take on anti-corruption as the messaging.
Well, I'm definitely a sitting Democrat. I have had 3 ethics bills in Congress to address the ethical issues within the Congress. And guess what? They've gone nowhere yet. And I think that when it comes to making sure our insurance companies and our corporations, I voted against what the Republicans wanted to do with Dodd-Frank because of my past history and my past businesses and watching what Wall Street was willing to do. And we were going to cut the legs out of Dodd-Frank, and that's something I'm unwilling to do. And many Democrats were of the same ilk. So we are going to see that. But I do have to say that when you take a look at the Democratic Party and you take a look at the Republican Party, words mean less than actions. And decade after decade after decade, the Democrats have been there for the American worker. Now, do we get our messaging out appropriately? No. Probably not. Yeah. But when you look at civil rights, the rights of workers, the fighting for a fair wage, all those issues, those are Democrats bringing those issues forward. They're not Republicans. They want to cut taxes for corporate America and the rich. And here's one of the things. If you come to me and say, I want to do all this up here and cut, and then the middle class, I'm going to cut this much. And I want to know how much more you're going to put on to the cost to the American people if you're going to have more toll roads and more costs for another new tax on that, and all these other issues that are going to be coming at us. Water, sewer, because the privatization of those issues, which we're going to be talking about in infrastructure, are a cost on the American people. And it's a way of diverting what government should be working on away from the budget for the government and onto the American people more. And I can guarantee you, any tax cut you would get would be wiped out. So those are the type of issues that we're looking at. long-term, right now. Right there. Oh, wait, we had one from you, didn't we? Okay.
Well, as far as budgeting is concerned, I truly believe maybe there need to be more women in budgeting.
Well, I have a life experience issue with that. And I can guarantee you in our household, I guess you're right. You're 100%. Every once in a while, I'll be in front of a group and I'll say, my children. And boy, I tell you, do I get in trouble with that. I had one woman out in Saddlebrook. She got up and she said, "What are you talking about? It's not your child alone. Who's the one that went to held that child for nine months? Who's the one that takes care of your children?" Well, we both do. But I've learned to say our. And it is our budget. And in fact, Kat controls most of it. And so she writes the checks and she does everything. In fact, I don't even know what we have to back it. I just know what I'm allowed in the loans. We have a question, Nate.
I just want to urge you and urge everyone here to consider local issues that affect us, environmental issues, public land issues, quality of life issues, and be active and support Tom in his efforts. There are big, heavy lifts in our region in terms of climate change. Because of the job issues for segments of our populations that are supported by coal, the coal industry, we have to transition through this period of time in a proactive way and move in individual ways and get our towns and communities to support incremental change that won't hurt these other communities. We have to untie this knot and think diligently about supplying jobs. And I know Tom is working on that problem, and I really thank you for doing that.
Well, you're welcome. Any other questions out here? We're back to you.
Back to healthcare. I'm a nurse, I'm also a cancer survivor, so I know personally what it's like to work in and deal with our healthcare system. So back to single payer healthcare. We have three single payer systems already in this country. We have the VA, we have Medicaid, and we have Medicare. They do a pretty good job of taking care of our oldest, our sickest, and our poorest. There is a reason that the private insurance companies made sure that there was not a public option on the table when they began to discuss the ACA. I think that they've had their chance to make this work, and they have failed. And I think it's time to look for a public option. It's time to look for single payer. What is wrong with taking those three systems, putting them together, and covering everybody?
Well, I don't know if I have much of a different answer to you other than to say there's nothing with investigating putting those systems together. We have no idea of what that means. Nobody in Congress, none of our analysts in Congress, clearly understand what bringing all those systems together would mean. And each and every one of those systems is highly complex. I would disagree with you that the VA system is run well.
I don't even say that.
I would say that the prescription drug side of Medicare is not very good. I would also identify that Medicaid is a system where I'm working on a bill right now. If somebody's incarcerated at the county level or federal penitentiary, and they go in on their drug addiction, say, they have their access here in Arizona taken away. Then they go out and they can go reapply for access. But that gap that's created there, instead of getting them back on access for the day they get released, we are having them have to wait and they get lost. They don't know where to go.
So close the gaps.
That's what I'm trying to do.
We have all these systems that are allowing people to fall through gaps. How could it be any more expensive than it is already? Why can't we use the systems that we already have in place? And when I said they do a pretty good job, I mean that they do a
insurances cherry pick the youngest and the healthiest, and they get those in their system, but our single payer systems don't.
I agree with you fully on that.
Yeah.
And then that's why part
How
of,
could it be more expensive than what we have already? We pay 7 times more for our healthcare than the next expensive country, which is Japan. There are countries in Africa that have a better infant mortality rate than the United States.
I can't take anecdotal information or real information from one country or another and apply it automatically to the United States without knowing what I'm talking about.
Well,
You
then
do.
you need to educate yourself.
Well, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. I have a whole staff that is trying to get us to understand this cumulative process. But you should also say that to Mr. Sanders. Because he doesn't know what he's doing either as far as that goes.
I make phone calls, I write letters, I do.
But believe me, we are doing exactly what you want us to do. I am, at least. If anybody knows me in this room, they know that analytically, that's what I do. I research, I go into depth, and I want to know what I'm talking about before I come out here. I don't want to come out here and give you a political answer. I want to come out here and give you an answer based on the best knowledge that I can bring forward so that it's a program that I'm going to work on for the American people, not just for politics. And that's where I'm at.
I'd like to recommend, if you have not read it yet, a book called An American Sickness. It is a fantastic book about the capitalization and profit motive of the American healthcare system. It's incredible. But I also did have a question on a longer term issue. Climate change. Is this not the time for another bipartisan move? We're seeing it now in the news every day. Is this not the time to raise that?
It's always time to raise climate change as an issue. Just so you know my history, back in 2003, I worked with the Bureau of Reclamation to make sure that climate change was part of the modeling process on the Colorado River. I've done that with the Forest Service also. And we know that within the government, and I've worked with them in the past, that the Department of Defense uses modeling on climate change for all their scenarios looking out into the future. So the fact that some people in the political area are in denial, and by the way, are now changing their minds, we just have to continue to apply that pressure to them so that they clearly understand that this is not going to go away, that the American people, 70-some% of us, fully understand this issue, that it is hurting us and it'll hurt our children and our grandchildren and our earth, and that we have to fight this thing. So I agree with you 100%. There was one other one back here.
As far as the message of the Democratic, I am too an independent, but I do. The other day I heard of one of the Republicans on television saying about socialism, bad word, and in reality is why do we pay taxes if that's not socialism by itself? You know, we pay taxes so we can have something collectively together as a society.
Sounds like goody.
So, you know, we need to simplify maybe the message. You know, what is our tax dollar going to? Because, you know, okay, we need to protect ourselves as a country. Okay, that's number one. Then the infrastructure. No, well, of course, maybe and the public itself, the people itself. So there's 3 simple things that need to be taken care of. So maybe we do need to learn to streamline, and simplicity, I think, is maybe part of the answer.
I agree with you fully. Here's what I've asked our leadership to do as late as 2 days ago, because one of our leaders was out here and went to an event with me. What we need to do is go out and get away from political marketing experts and people that only deal with the political environment, and reach out to some people that deal with people, as far as marketing to individual people to get them to buy a product, and get some new ideas and new concepts involved in our marketing schemes. Because obviously what we're doing isn't working. Now, we try to overthink our marketing plan and try to, Pat will tell you right now that she'll eventually, when I'm talking, start to go like this. Compress time, try to put it in less words. That's what we need to do in our marketing plan. Get it into a concise message that people can understand, because we know people don't want to go through analysis. And I want to get the name of that book again for Ryan, okay? So we don't go into this analysis that puts people to sleep. And that's exactly what we've been doing. And we have to stop that. And I think the closer we get to that, the better off we'll be. Because there's tremendous amounts of things that have been done that most of the American people don't even know about. So, yes. Yes, one more question. You tell me, Karen.
Yeah, you got time for
Yeah.
You guys have a scheduled follow, I'm sure. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you. I love you for coming.
So what I
You became a Democrat.
So are some other people, including myself.
As long as you vote the way I want you
What
to.
I'm hearing you say is that we should really concentrate on getting Democrats elected in 2018, so that we can take back over the House and maybe the Senate in 2020. That's where the basis of our forces should be going right now.
If we really want to change the dynamic and direction of America, we have to defend the Senate as much as possible. It's going to be a really rough battle. Oh, I'm sorry, I did it again. If we're going to make sure that we have a voice in America, I probably said it different first time, that we have to make sure we defend the Senate, start working towards who our presidential candidate that we can coalesce around is, and clearly get back the House in 2018. Now here's the main. There's 19 of us that are called front runners. We are the 19 that are not in safe districts, but we're in competitive districts. So for every one of the 19 we lose, we have to pick up 2 seats. So that's part of the math. The second part of the math is we need 24 additional seats over and above that. We think we have targeted about 50 seats that we can have a chance at. And we feel that because it's an off-year election, because of what's going on around the country, that if we work hard and have good candidates, we will be able to be highly competitive to get 24 or more seats. But again, I have told and addressed people in the Democratic Party time and time again, November 8th is the end of the last election, November 8th, 2016. This was one of the few groups in all of Arizona outside of Maricopa and Pima County that are meeting on a regular basis. Our state party is not doing enough to coalesce that process. We will not win elections in the coming year if we do not start now. Just like our messaging, we have to start now. And everybody on Capitol Hill knows it. That's why sadly you're seeing so much of this request for money, request for this, because the Republicans are right now outraising us. And we can't let that happen, because they will be allowed to save some seats that we should be able to take back. And so my race is against Senator Smith, who is a ultra conservative from down state senator. He has a record that is almost, even when I was a Republican, his record is way out there, my record. Because, well, I voted in unison with the bipartisan process. But we have to, if all these things that we worked for and care about, and all this sadness in the party right now, we have to turn that energy, all that energy we're losing because we're sad, into energy to win. And we can win these seats back, and we can at least get to the point where we're in a check and balance situation, and then from there, move on to 2020 and do what we have to do then, and we'll have learned how to win races again, and then we'll learn how to take back the White House and the Senate. but we must win in order to have a chance. So, thank you very much, everybody.
Anita had one other question. Anita, did you have a last question?
I imagine that you don't see that there's any possibility of impeachment before.
Here is my answer. We have a special investigation going on. And as you know, I'm a former investigator.
Right.
And I don't start to talk about impeachment issues or arresting somebody until I know the facts. And I was a homicide investigator. And we are not going to go down a path. Our leadership doesn't want to go down a path until we can go out in front and say, we have the evidence to prove it. Otherwise, we are getting in a completely different discussion as America than what they want us to, that we need to concentrate. They want to use that message against us, and we need to use it against them when and if we get the evidence necessary, and we will take it.
And do you have confidence in Robert Mueller?
Oh, God, yes. Complete confidence. Thank you, everybody.
As you all leave, if you want to get tickets for the musical event, just